Hello. Hello. How are you?
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Hi. Hi, Pam.
Hi. You have to go lay down. Good girl.
Hello, Miss Sangster. Hello, everybody else. Okay. I gotta close that door. Does everybody else hate spell check with a passion? I know that Mr. Prins had the possibility of a work situation that was going to pull him out of this. But so unless you have, I haven't heard from anybody else on the board that's unable to attend. So I guess we don't actually necessarily need a quorum, right? Because any action we're going to take will be later. This is just a cut time regular meeting. So all right, so I will at 5:31 p.m. call this special meeting of the Salisbury Central School Board of Education to order. And the first item of business is a presentation of our 2022-2023 proposed Salisbury Central School budget or estimated expenses.
Right.
Estimate of expenses, I should say, yes.
Right. I was gonna go over a little of the process for our new board members, but they're not here, so I'll keep that shorter. They're not here yet. If they do, maybe if they pop on, maybe I'll just kind of
backtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll still tell you a little, remind you. So we start, in some ways, you're budgeting all year for the next year because you're thinking about it all the time. And as things come in higher or lower than you think, then Sue and I make notes and say, let's remember this at budget time. So we think about it a lot. Then, of course, Sue started thinking about it even before I was back at work and getting things prepared. And then we started our meetings and we usually in this version of the budget, it's kind of everything that we're thinking of. Maybe things aren't all perfected. Maybe certain things are guesstimates at this point, but it gives us something to start from. And I think usually we hope that eventually the bottom line percentage is less than it is at this one. This is kind of the bulk one. Let's see. So for this year, for next year, sorry, we're estimating our numbers on 315 students in pre-K through 8th grade. And that would be an average class size of 15, which is in keeping with what we've had. And so to that end, we're not looking at reducing any staff, and we're not significantly looking to increase any staff. There's one possible place I'll talk about, but basically everything would remain sort of status quo as far as that goes. I think that's the basic of the background. I guess we can start. I will do what I usually do, which is kind of highlight some key sections that have either a large increase or decrease and not address every single line, but obviously be willing to. Sue or I would certainly talk about any line you want, but that way we won't go line by line. I'll tell you the line that we're going to look at, and then you can ask questions. Sue, is there anything to add yet?
No.
Okay. Just checking. All right. So obviously we always begin, I think, with the first line of the budget there, which is the largest one to discuss, which is certified staff. That line actually shows a decrease, you'll see there, of a little, well, almost $43,000. That line is the one that has the most within it. And there's a lot of things that make it go up and make it go down within that large budget item. So we have normal contract salary increases, right, for everyone based on the teacher contract. We have, oh, I see someone, Jackie. We have, of course, our teachers that have taken the retirement. And so we've accounted for 3 early retirees. We've accounted for 2 other resignations. At this time, we're not talking about the names of any of these individuals, but we hope to be able to talk about that more specifically at the 28th meeting. Hi, Jackie. I just started. I'm on line 1. Let's see. We have the, you might remember, we've talked about before that the assistant principal, the science portion of that was in certified staff because there was going to be part last year, like this year, we were going to do it part science, part admin, and then we decided to keep it all admin. Even though there is the science teaching component. So there's money moved out of that line that goes into the assistant principal line instead. Then we have money to account for replacing the teachers that retire. As I already mentioned, at this round of the budget, we have every teacher who's going to leave being replaced. Maybe not in the exact same fashion, but being replaced. And certainly, obviously not at the same step. We do usually factor in something that gives us a little wiggle room so that we wouldn't have to take a absolutely brand new teacher if that wasn't our best fit, but certainly not somebody at top step. And the only addition, so everything is kind of just people are leaving and we're going to replace them and all of that. So the only additional money that is in that line is some funding for, hi, how are you?
Tom. Hey.
Tom, I'm just on line 1 of the budget, which is certified staff. And I just kind of highlight things that are decreases or increases. But then at the end, you can ask about anything that you want. And even if I didn't touch on it. So I was just saying that we have 3 people retiring and 2 people that will be resigning. We can't name their names yet, but at the next meeting we can. And at this version of the budget, we're accounting for replacing all of them in one way or another. But the only additional thing right now is that I have some money in there for some possible wellness, social emotional counseling. I'm still trying to figure out what it could look like should there be funds to do it. But I feel like we are in a bit of a world where the social emotional piece is just growing for kids. And, we're fortunate to have one counselor, Donna. But she's trying to service what will again be 315 kids and teach a curriculum that keeps getting more and more robust, which is good. There's a lot more teaching standards, but that does put her in a classroom. And then that doesn't make her available for the actual, sort of small group counseling, one-on-one counseling, even just she's typically one of the first people that a teacher could call when a child who's maybe being dysregulated in a classroom. But if she's teaching her own classroom, it gets tricky. So one of the things I've been thinking of is now with those standards increasing, the time to try to increase that type of support. And I've been doing some research about what ways we could do that would both give us what we need and be cost effective. And is it another counselor? Is it a part-time counselor? Is it a wellness teacher who kind of takes on more of the classes? Donna continues the counseling. Is it even just some sort of a behavioral teaching assistant to give her some support? So I haven't fully fleshed that out, and I might be more ahead had I not been out, but that would be something right now that there's some money in that line for, but that would also be something we might not do if we get to the kind of down to the nitty gritty and we have to lose something. All right, that's a big one, so I'll stop there for a minute. Does anybody have questions about the certified staff line?
So Stephanie, so the one that you just talked about, the emotional, is it Title I or it's still certified staff? Title I?
Certified staff. Title I is just covers
Different.
that wouldn't cover that.
Okay.
So it would fall on, I think, well, actually, let me say, right this moment, we put money in certified staff. However, should I be able to figure out, I know that Sharon Center School is doing something interesting with a behavioral teaching assistant that may be a non-certified staff. So the money at this moment in this version is in certified staff, but perhaps it would go elsewhere or be even the amount could be changed. We put in right now thinking for a like a BA1 type amount of money, just brand new something. But that was more of a placeholder because we haven't fleshed out what we could do yet.
Like how you're actually going to construct
Right.
it.
Right.
Yep.
We're still trying to like figure out what the different options are and what certification will be needed and what Donna and the kids like really need. We also soon, I think it's next month or the end of this month, we're sending out these needs assessments to students and staff for the region. I thought that once we got the data from that, it also might be more telling too. You know, like, do kids keep reporting that they feel that when they need the counselor, she's unavailable because she's teaching middle school classes? Or, you know, it'd just be interesting to see if our perception is their reality.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, but also you're still decreasing the certified staff line. Still, it came out as decreasing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Some, as you can see, we do have a large chunks saved there with the retirees.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions about that line right now? Okay, so the next line that I was going to talk about, we're still just at that top there, line 3, the extra duty. You'll just see that there's a decrease of 2,500 there. That is because that's where our complimentary observers are. And we used to pay John and Rebecca to be complimentary observers. And now obviously John just does it as part of his job and Rebecca has moved on. So we would just pay less. John and I will do all the, and Tracy will do all the observations.
Yeah.
All right, then in line 6, paraprofessionals. You'll see an increase, and that is not, we're not increasing the number of paraprofessionals. That's just the contracted salary increase. So we have 10 and we
negotiated increase. Yeah.
Okay. And then the line 12, sorry. Line 12 is the assistant principal line, and we talked about that already. It looks like an increase there, but it really isn't because that money came out of the certified staff. So in that section, if you're looking at your budget document where it says Series 1000, does anybody see anything else that they want to ask about in that section? No? Okay. So now we're in the next section, which is Series 1100. And for everything in this one, the easiest way to discuss this one is just to say that anything that is increasing is because of the salary increases. And any specific questions? Okay. Then we're in Series 2000 under benefits. And
well,
there
before we leave salaries,
sure.
I have a question. This would probably call on anybody's more historical knowledge, but we're in an extraordinary period of inflation where the CPI is going to be multiples of what it's been in recent years. And how do you look at that? How do you take that into account? Because these if I look at the subtotal salaries for either one of these, one of them is sub 1%, the other one is Yeah, so altogether, you're looking at a 1% increase. Is that something that's gonna cause hardship if the inflation, if buying food and all that outpaces all of this? And I guess just how have you dealt with that before? I assume you've seen this before at some point.
Well, we basically, I mean, I'll jump on that a little bit. We negotiate, we're on sort of a 3-year cycle, the last 2 negotiations with both outfits, the certified and non-certified staff. And we base most of the rest of this, well, it's either, but roll that back. So a lot of that is based on that negotiation. Anything that's not directly in that unit sort of follows it.
Okay.
When we're giving our board clerk a raise, it's based on the percentage of increase that we've established in negotiation. When we're raising our administrator's salary, it's based on whatever bar we set.
So this is not. So this is this outcome has already been arrived at by a completely separate process.
And it was before, yeah. And just as far as timing goes, it was well before we saw this jag up in cost of living and inflation.
Yeah.
So I think that obviously that's going to be at the next negotiation that happens. This will be a factor that we're going to have to wrestle with.
When is that?
2 years and 3 years, I think, right? I forget what timetable we're on, but I think that's where we're at. I mean, we literally just closed both these contracts
I think this is year 1 of 3-year contracts for both certified and non-certified.
Basically, yeah.
And then again, sorry for the digression, but so let's just say the situation got bad or whatever. Do they have any recourse to reopen the negotiation and say, hey, something's come up that we have to deal with? We want to go back. Do they? Is that just not written?
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
It's not a thing. I mean, obviously, I think that if things got exceedingly dire for some reason, I think the request would be heard. I don't know what action would be taken on the request, but it would certainly be at the forefront of our mind when the next cycle came around, for sure.
Yeah.
Just based on the way this town has, in good faith, I think, served the employees of this town, most specifically the ones that reside in our building.
And if I recall correctly, there is a process of some sort of a formal process to reopen a contract, but it's not one that usually people like to do because if you open it, you're opening all of it. You can't just say, I'm going to only open this piece. So then anything is back up for negotiation, which doesn't always make people so comfortable.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. So we are Series 2000, line 21, I think it is. We're looking at the health insurance. So though you'll see some, the significant looks like a significant increase there. That's based on the state projection that we are estimated to increase 8%. The board pays, nearly 80% and employees pay around 20% of that. And basically, let's see, I'm just looking to sum up. Yeah, everything here is in that health insurance section is out of our control and not determined exactly yet. It's just a projection.
And it started, just so for everyone's information, started at a hopeful 4.
Right.
And that changed recently. So, and we've been riding, luckily we've been riding since we adopted the state plan. They've been able to maintain or maybe have artificially maintained, we don't know, an increase of 2%-ish a year, which is, kind of out of incongruous with the rest of the health insurance market. But, we've benefited from that for quite a while, for 5 years. I think it's been since we adopted it. So.
And do we work directly with the broker and who's the carrier?
It's a state partnership plan, and it's through
Anthem.
Anthem, right?
Yep, it's Anthem, and Sam Harrigan's, our central office, tends to figure all this out for us and then deliver the news.
Yeah.
Yeah, and are we part of a much broader pool here, or okay?
And it's been growing. You know, it's a state partnership plan that the state came up with, as
Mhm.
everything else was sort of spiraling. I don't want to call it out of control, but everything was increasing rapidly.
Yeah,
And they offered this for the first time, I want to say 5-6 years ago. And slowly it's become more and more, it's been adopted further and further, you know, in a broader and broader group. We were relatively early on, I think, in adopting it. I'm not sure whether the town has yet or not. They were a little reluctant at the outset because they have some special concerns with certain employees. That this plan just didn't provide the coverage that had been previously promised. So, yeah.
Okay, so if we move past the health insurance, line 23, does line 23 say pensions in your?
Mhm.
Okay, just make sure. Okay, so that's up 4,135. That's again a contractual pension payment for non-certified staff. The line 23, sorry. Under same line, sorry, the retirement incentive, you're well aware of that. So we have year 1 of 3 years for 3 people at 18,000 each. And again, we hope to be sharing the letters of retirement at the next meeting. So it's public for everyone. We're just trying to give people time to share with their colleagues and their families. And then let's see, line 27 under unemployment is up just in case we have an extra custodian in case when that ends, we needed it, that's there. Questions about the series 2000? Now we're in 3000. The first line, instructional, is down, not because we're doing any less instruction, but because that's the one that always gets adjusted based on the number of kids in the class for trips such as Nature's Classroom and DC. So that one goes up and down based on the number of kids that are going to be in those classes. And that's really all that's changing there. Any questions for that 3000 section? So in 30,
Are we assuming that we're going to be able to do, you know, kind of the full Megillah as far as the kids' experience of being off campus? And
for next year,
yeah,
I hope so.
okay.
For this year, we're still trying to go to Nature's Classroom, and obviously not DC, but looking at an 8th grade something, potentially
Yeah.
Boston. But by next year, I'd love to think that we could be back to both. I mean,
Okay.
obviously we don't know, but that would be our hope, and we want to budget that way. Yeah. Okay, so now series 3300, we will go to line 41 and 42, which are transportation says transportation contract and field trips. And again, these are contractual increases of 3% for the, you know, based on fuel cost and things like for the buses. And then the next thing to talk about, which you already know about, is our portion of the middle school, regional middle school activities and athletics program, which we talked about last meeting, is the 18,000. It's a tiny bit more than maybe we talked about, because we did find this year that we have had to pay staff to stay and supervise the kids in between. You know, we didn't know how the busing would go, nor did Anne, I don't think. And so sometimes our kids don't get picked up till 3:45. And obviously the teachers, you know, are done at 3, especially middle school. So like Beyond the Bell, we pay somebody to supervise the athletes, usually 2 sections. You know, we could do the 2 different teams. And so for moving forward, that would be one of those examples where, as we saw that happening, then Sue says, oh, next year I'll be sure to put that in, and we'll know we have it if that becomes the case again. Okay, questions in,
One of the biggest challenges, I think, of the athletic program has been transportation,
Right.
staffing and transportation, but
Yeah.
transportation, has been an issue. So hopefully there'll be some kind of middle ground that we get to with it, I hope.
right. Absolutely. And as always, our staff has been amazing, and we made a calendar right away and said who can help out, and people fill in their names and we get the kids, supervised. So
Well, just a casual observation that the girls' basketball bus from Cornwall has like a kid on it. It's a bus for like 2 students maybe. And I feel like they're going places that the other parents and cars are going. I just, as the pandemic winds down, maybe options open up. I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah, and I certainly hope that as the pandemic winds down, that we have more, I think some of the problems with the busing had to do with just drivers and illness and, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions in 3,300? Okay, so then we're on to 3,600. The first thing of note actually isn't until the top, middle of this next page. If your pages look like my pages, I'm on line 70. Increase for snow plowing. And that's just the new 2-year contract with Green Acres.
Yeah.
And similarly down in 74, I think it is, you have a $3,500 increase for the new 2-year contract with Allendale, plus an increase for tree maintenance, because those of us on building and grounds know that we talk about trees a lot. So, okay, let's see. And that is all that I noted in that section. Does anybody have questions in 3,600? Okay. Let's see. Then in 4,000, wanted to talk about the biggest standout there is line 91, which is textbooks. These are new print textbooks and digital textbooks for middle school Spanish. It's a 3-year contract. As you know, we have a new middle school Spanish teacher, and this is what she has chosen to use. So we obviously want to honor her request and get her, some new material. It's been a long time.
Can I ask a question? Is that so per annum we're going to be paying this, or is that a one-time fee for 3 years? In other words, okay.
Okay, and then other questions in 4,000. Okay, in 4,400. There's not really much of anything to discuss. One thing I'll just say is there's that one increase under general supplies. That's another example of Sue and I trying to think ahead. We know that we're going to have potentially 5 new teachers. They don't get a chance to do any budgeting. So we say, we know every single one of them is going to come with something that they think of, like, oh, I wanted a carpet. Oh, I used to have these kind of whiteboards or whatever. So we try to put in a little extra sort of for each of them. Okay. Questions in 4,400. Oh, I wanted technology. Yes, I wanted to mention technology. So there isn't those lines when you look at it just strictly by increase and decrease for AV new technology and replacement technology. It doesn't look like a standout, but I do always ask, and she's nice enough to join us. So Pam is here if we have questions about technology, or if you just want her to remind us, what even those lines mean or anything like that. Or Pam, if there's anything that you wanted to highlight. Anybody? I mean, we're kind of on track, right, with technology. We're not getting anything new and crazy.
So
it always kind of
decrease
balances.
That decrease is just a bunch of units that we don't have to cycle out.
Yeah, there's always some adjustment on new technology and replacement, that we might be replacing something one year that we don't have to replace another year. We always try to replace some group of student Chromebooks, because eventually they stop updating. So we have to always have some of that. And we have less of that this year than we did last year. But yeah, there's no big changes. We're just maintaining things and making sure everybody's got what they need.
Okay.
Any other questions for Pam? Thank you, Pam. We love guest appearances.
Then we're on to series 4600. Oh no, yes, we are. Okay, that's heating oil, upper building, lower building. Those are numbers based on what Sam has recommended that we budget for 7,000 gallons for the lower building at a certain 2.86 a gallon, and then 30,000 gallons at 2.86 a gallon for the upper building.
Is that just a question? Is that negotiated prices that we've gotten from City Hall already, or are we not at that point yet? Or should I call Curtis and find out?
Well, it's just a placeholder because it's the numbers that the region uses.
Right.
As opposed to what we negotiate with Curtis.
Right.
Curtis always waits till the summer.
Yeah, he always waits the last minute. So it's not based on any projection that Curtis provided us with.
No,
Okay,
it's just
Okay.
from Sam.
got it.
Then line 108 under custodial has a large increase, most of which is due to a contract that we have with Cintas. You probably heard us talk about Cintas before. They are the company, and they also do the high school that provides us not only with COVID-related items like sanitizer and all of our hand wipe stations and all of that stuff that would be sort of sanitizing, but also during the course of this pandemic, they were able to come in and put in soap dispensers and paper towels and carpets and rags for the kitchen, and they provide everything and they switch it out. David, feel free to jump in here anytime, but what seems to have been the case is that what looks on paper, so the paper that you get, sort of says like, we're going to have X number of whatever dish towels at X amount per dish towel. And that all looks kind of reasonable. And then when you lay it out for a year, you realize that that all adds up to a lot more than we had initially budgeted for. Building and Grounds, to my understanding, has been looking at whether we'd want to stay with them or not, and whether we could get out of the contract or not. There are pros and cons to both approaches. One pro to Cintas is everybody feels safe. Everything is where it should be. Everything is labeled. Everything is uniform. And so this makes people feel secure in a time where safety and cleaning is so important. It also buys the custodians more time to focus on things like they're wiping high touch surfaces and they're cleaning bathrooms and things that they didn't have to do before during the middle of a school day.
Yeah, the idea was, we danced around with Cintas because the high school had engaged them years and years ago, and had a very good experience with them. With the pandemic hitting us, that's what kind of pushed us over. I don't want to say pushed us over the edge, but it seemed to make a lot of sense to have that off of everybody's plates. Everybody could focus on the student and the staff and the immediate environment, and our custodial staff could really just worry about that. A. B, we would have certainly additional hand sanitizing stations and a lot of hand washing. And we didn't, this is in the early days. So now we're sort of seeing what the actual cost of engaging them in a 3-year contract is. We're not completely satisfied, and we're not quite sure that it's money well spent. So we're examining it. We're examining our usage within the terms of that contract and whether we can kind of pull back in some areas and save some money. And we're also, I guess, to some extent, Stephanie talked about the peace of mind that having hand sanitizer stations, even if they're not used as regularly as you would think, provide. So I think it's something we're going to examine. There's no quick exit from the contract, but by the end of the 3 years, I think we'll have come to a determination of either how to scale it back to suit us or to continue. There are advantages of it. One of the questions is our custodial staff taking advantage of the time saving element of it? That's also a factor that we have to look at, so yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. It's I don't want to say an area of concern, but it's kind of like, wow, okay. So that's the real cost of this, which.
So David, what is our year now? Is it our second year in the third?
Being our second year of the contract.
And this is projections for the third.
No, this is projections for our second year,
Oh, second, okay.
right?
No.
No, Sue?
No, third.
Oh, this is our final year. Okay.
22, 23 would be year 3 of a 5-year contract.
Ah, 5-year.
So that's why I'm getting confused, because I know we have 3 years left. So I'm thinking of a 3-year contract. All right. Any questions about that?
Okay. So then we are on to, let's see, we're actually going to flip to series 5100, I believe. Yes. Which is got not much of excitement other than where it says furniture and fixtures, $910. That comes from what we consider to be, how do I put it? If it's a permanent fixture, a solid classroom table or bookshelves that are going to probably be there for eternity, we tend to take that out of capital. We've talked about that before. But if these are more, I don't want to call them disposable, but they're like those cute little seats for flexible seating or little stools or colorful items. They're probably not lifers. They're going to eventually need to be replaced. They go under that category. So those are some requests from the teachers for mostly stools and chairs, but not permanent stools and chairs, if that makes sense. Okay, and then series 5200, you see under educational, both educational where there's the significant, almost $8,000 increase, and then also under furniture and fixtures where there's a decrease. All of that together comes from what we've talked about before we call teacher big ticket items. They are asked for things that they want that would be outside of sort of the normal budgeting for their classroom or their subject area. And they put those requests in before budget time to Sue. And then Sue and I go over them and we figure out how to, what we can afford and how to prioritize. This version, we always put in everything that's been asked for. And then if that's an area, we scale back if we have to. The furniture and fixtures comes out to be a decrease, but then the increase comes in educational. That includes some things like, for example, an entire class set of ukuleles. That would be a new instrument in elementary music. And so I think there would be something like 16 of them and a rack for them. There's also new, if anybody who has kids in the school seen those red library bags that have to go home, to protect the books, time to replace library bags. There's some robotics kits. There's a classroom library additional thing called geodes. So these are just things that would enhance teaching and learning that teachers would like. And as I said, in this version, we always leave everything in and then, we can look at it if needed. And let's see. So that brings us through everything in the regular section. Before we get to that COVID thing, is there anything in anything that we've talked about in the regular section or any line that we didn't talk about that you want to ask about?
I'm curious, what happened to 3,200, 3,400?
Did I skip them in my talk?
No, they're not there. Why we just jumped over those numbers? I'm kidding. It was a joke. Sorry, a bad joke.
Oh no, that's where we put the really expensive stuff. We just don't.
Oh, they don't tell us about. Okay.
Okay, so then that brings us to the COVID line. As you can see, this version still has a COVID line. It has it reduced some, but really, Sue and I had discussed at our meetings that this meeting we wanted to discuss it with you. There's nothing hard and fast about our, putting it here. If the reason that we put the 70,000 there would be thinking of what if we still need an additional custodian. At this time we had hired the additional custodian for the first COVID year. I think we did it for half a year and then extended it and then realized we needed it for summer and then extended it to December of this year because we started school and, we had we're like, oh, we really still need it. And then all of a sudden we're thinking that person was going to end at the end of December. And then thank goodness we didn't do that, because we start back after Christmas with Omicron and people are back in high anxiety and high cases. So we keep the extra custodian on. So in theory, that person should be leaving in June, or perhaps they could do some summer work, but they should not be there next year. But what if some new variant or some new cleaning COVID thing comes up? So we just thought, well, maybe that would be money if we needed an additional custodian. Or let's hope that doesn't happen. This year and the last 2 years, we've had the free meals for students, which is fabulous for students. But I think I talked at the last meeting about how it's less fabulous for the cafeteria staff.
Yeah.
And should that happen again, we would have to provide more cafeteria support. They are hanging on by a thread. So then that would be money that could cover that. Or if that doesn't happen, there's always, the rare possibility that we get a bubble up of a class size, and in a normal world, we squeeze in and make do. But if we're back to any sort of COVID spacing rules, I hope it's not so, but I heard a rumor of like, people will unmask, but then they'll go back to 6 feet. Well, if that were the case, we may need bigger, we may need a classroom to be split up more than we do. None of those things could happen, in which case I think we do what we had talked about, which is just we wouldn't spend that line. But we wanted your opinions. Those things could kind of be bulked up in other areas of the budget, right? Like we could add to custodial, and we could add, for non-certified staff, kind of bulk everything up and not spend it that way. Or we could leave it in a COVID line. I guess we just wanted to know what you thought. And then of course we can also ask the Board of Finance, but first we want to start with, what did you all think?
I mean, my opinion is to keep that in the same pot now, because, at least in the past, now there's been some changeover at the Board of Finance, but in the past, they felt comfortable with us saying these extra expenditures are really almost specifically related to what we're experiencing right now with COVID. And so we want to keep it there. So you understand that that's not that we're hiring 5 new teachers because our student body has grown, that we're not buying a brand new computer system because we want to, that this is related to the health and mental well-being of our staff and students and community. So I think it's smart to leave it there. It's also an easy place to kind of chip away at it if we feel like things are going well in that vein. That's my opinion, but.
Any other disagreement or?
I think it's prudent and cautious and necessary.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So then that would bring us to, in this version, which has everything in it, and estimates of things, would bring us to an increase of 3.95% overall. At this meeting last year, we were at 4.53%. So I am glad in that sense, we're already ahead. And again, usually then we like to look closer and try to decrease it too and see what the Board of Finance wants. But we like to kind of talk through everything with you at this meeting. Other thoughts, questions, concerns?
No, I have none. I mean, I think that's terrific. It's a terrific first cut, I think, at it.
You guys did a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well explained too.
Thanks. And of course, I always thank Sue, and more this year than ever, because as I said, she had to definitely get started without me. So I appreciate her help.
She likes that. She likes to dabble in the lab with no oversight, just so you know.
As long
That's
as
good.
as long as I don't have to make any of the decisions, I'm happy.
She's great to give me scenarios. Well, if you do it this way, this is what will happen. It's good. All right. Well, then the next step is we continue to look at it closer at our February 28th meeting. We normally then just tell you what things we've done differently since this version, right? So we'll come and say everything's the same except this, this, and this. And then is it that meeting where they decide that which one we're bringing to the Board of Finance?
We should basically, say that we approve this to be presented to. And then, we'll have a conversation with the Board of Finance and you know,
Right.
they'll obviously, you know, ask us to sharpen pencils because
Right.
they should.
Yes. And then
we
we
will.
look again, and they can
Yep.
also weigh in on the COVID line again if they, you know, if they want to. And then we go through another round and you have another chance to look at it. So there's, you know, I'm thinking of Tom, who's new to this. There's a lot of time that you get to be in the process.
Yeah.
Cool.
Great.
I just want to say that as we go through the process, everybody should feel free to contact Stephanie and or I in between these meetings, if something pops into your head and you have a question, or, you know, somebody in the community asks you a question and you'd like to be able to answer that for them. You don't have to wait till these meetings to bring up any questions you have. Just feel free to send us an email and we'll give you the answer as quickly as we can.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. That's a great point. Okay,
Thanks,
Great.
everybody.
great. Well, thanks.
Any
for
other questions for Sue or Steph? So the next-
Just, I do
Yeah.
have one, just kind of administrative here.
Yeah,
Stephanie, do you guys need more test kits or masks?
I don't know the answer to the mask question, but I
Okay.
can easily get that answer. But I feel like test kits are always good. We're trying to make sure that every teacher, every staff member, I should say, knows that they can get one, that they don't ever feel like they're kind of can't find what they need. And then families that have children with symptoms, you know, I know Mary's dropped some on people's doorsteps or she's meeting them early in the morning.
Right.
So if there's a way to get test kits easily, then I'm sure we would take those.
We're getting another municipal shipment for schools and EMS.
Okay.
So, but I have to share with, you know, Hotchkiss and Salisbury and the amount, you know, as best as I can. So, okay. Do you guys need the regular mask, the regular surgical mask too?
That I want to ask Mary about, because I don't think that we do, but I don't want to misspeak.
All right, then
So
I'll give her a call tomorrow then.
Oh, okay.
This
great.
seems to be shaking her head, but. And hey, Jackie, can I ask you a question? You guys are just distributing rapid tests?
Correct.
Or if I were able to find some PCR tests that were administered online, would that be a useful thing to distribute, or is that just complicating the pool, muddying the pool, as it were?
I don't know.
We'll
We'd have
talk-
to probably
we'll
ask
talk off
Mary
of
what's the, I mean, she
All right.
normally just does the regular, because then if it tests positive, they can always decide on their regular GP, or, you know, they can go get tested someplace else.
To-
where they
to
can get
drill down.
whatever
Okay,
Right.
okay,
But we could talk to him, you know, I'll ask Mary tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
thank you. Any other questions, comments? So any public comments on agenda items this evening? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Thank you, Mr. Wogan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
Staff.
Have
Have
a
a
good
good night.
night.
You too.
Bye, you too. Thanks, Pam. Bye, thanks, Sue.